Special guest joining us react to news that's going on. America's mayor, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and we'll get to that in just a moment because, man, we miss you.
Can you come back, please?
We'll get to that in a second, but we do want to say on the topic right now, you saw the president, I assume, at Bedminster making his announcement. Now, you're an attorney, and you know that legally this may be a difficult case to go somewhere, but I've made the argument that the average person knows there's something wrong.
The average person is not so far off. There are legal theories that fit this. They just haven't been used. First of all, it's a pretty classic antitrust case. Antitrust is there not just for criminal
But that
violence.
was thrown out last week, an effort to have an antitrust case against them. 46 states, as well as the U.S. government.
But there was no standing. It was the usual excuse that the court uses when it doesn't want to hear something.
Right.
But if I'll give you a perfect case that should have been brought. I think Parler. Parler's business was destroyed by a restraint of trade between two or three of them. 2 or 3 of them got together. They saw a company that was. I was on Parler for a year. I never had more than 120,000. All of a sudden, it went from 120,000 to 1.5 million in 2 months. 120,000 to 1.5 million. I had just as many on Parler as I had on Instagram, and not Instagram, Twitter. And then all of a sudden, they just took it away.
Parler. Took away Parler.
For reasons that they say were about their content, could also be because they were challenging them. That's a classic restraint of trade. 2 companies cannot get together for the purpose of restraining the trade of a third company. They surely did that. And the same thing could be said here because Trump is not just a political figure, he's a business. So what they did when they took off his 85,000 followers, so let's say 80% of that communication is political, but 20% of it is commercial in the sense that it supports the Trump brand. So I would say that's also a restraint of trade. The way they get away with it mostly is this. The right of free speech is a right that we have protected against the government, not against private persons. So if you come into my house and I don't want you to talk about election fraud, I can throw you out of my house. However, if I'm on a government channel or I'm there with or something licensed by the government, you can't do that. They contend they're private. I contend garbage. They're not private. They're a public utility. They gave up being private when they got up to 50 million, 60 million, 70 million. And I think some court is going to have to hold that. We've done that before. Remember when people would sit in at the Woolworths counter for civil rights?
Yeah. It became a public square.
Yeah. At first, the courts threw those all out. Tough luck. Southern courts threw tough luck. They're all private, private, private. Then they came up with the concept it's a public accommodation. If you have it open to the public, you can't deny people the right to sit there because they're black. Well, now what we need is an interpretation that says you can't deny a person the right to speak because of their political views. And I can see that coming.
Well, I think, too, it's not just, President Trump being censored. It's other people. It's regular people.
I'm happy to they censored me.
It's moms who post about their kids wearing masks. It's journalists. It's anybody,
well,
really,
YouTube,
they can
YouTube
decide
did it to me
censor.
YouTube did it to me twice, and it cost me money. It cost me, I went down from 1.4 to like 700,000 or 800,000. I had to build back up again. Then it went down again when they took me off. So each time they're doing it, they may say they're doing it for political reasons, but they're having an economic effect on me, and that's a restraint of trade. The second time they took me off, it was totally ridiculous. They took me off because I had a nicotine advertiser. The nicotine advertiser I had was a catalog company that I had from the day I went on YouTube for 1 year, which many other people on YouTube have, and never taken me off.
Is that with the cigar?
Yeah, they sell cigars. They're one of the big mail-order cigar companies. I happen to be a cigar smoker. They've been with me from the beginning, one of my most loyal advertisers. That was just an excuse. For a year, they didn't bother about that until I was supporting Trump, and then they took me off.
Okay.
And there's no place anywhere that I can find in their written. They don't have anything written. There's no place written that says you can't have a cigar.
They made that decision.
They make it up as they go along. Now, when that has an effect on the business of other people, That's a violation of the antitrust laws. And I just think the court was being too
well, maybe they'll get somebody with standing.
Too technical about the standing of the states. Because the states are not business enterprises.
They didn't want to take it up. Like
but Trump is a business enterprise. I'm a business enterprise. Those people who get taken off these things like Instagram and Twitter, very often they advertise. And even if they have a couple 100,000, that can mean real money to them.
Okay.
And you put them off for 3 weeks, you take that money away from them and their children.
We've only got about a minute, but I feel like what's going on in New York, it's going on in a lot of other cities.
It is.
The crime is outrageous. You came in the 90s. You had the so-called broken window policy. People had to pay a price for theoretically breaking the windows, for vandalism, and that sent a message.
Yes.
Kept the bad guys off the streets.
Very good point.
Would that work today? Could you do it today?
One of the reasons for what is happening here, I predicted 7 years ago when De Blasio came into office and said he was going to reverse the broken windows theory, because it goes after little people for little crimes. The man isn't intelligent enough to know that it was written by a Harvard professor named James Q. Wilson. He probably thought it came from a dumb conservative. Somebody should have told him. He doesn't read a lot, so somebody should have read this. This is a scholarly theory. And the theory is that if you fight crime at the early stage, it doesn't get to the top stage. Plus, he stopped arresting people who were fare beating. Well, that sounds like that's not too bad.
Right.
If he had arrested people for fare beating, he'd have none of the problems he has right now on the subway. Does he think that a man that goes on the subway to throw a woman on the track pays his fare? Is he stupid enough to think that?
I see him jump over every day.
The problem for New York is worse than any place else. This is a Biden-Harris problem that they created last year by bailing out rioters, by allowing police stations to be taken over.
Cashless bail.
For saying nothing about Black Lives Matter, which I don't know what you think of it, but I will not tolerate Black Lives Matter, because in every demonstration they call for the killing of police officers.
Right.
They chant, fry them like bacon, and they're talking about killing police officers, and they are guided by former Black Panthers who actually did kill police officers. So we should take the bull off Black Lives Matter and exactly say what they are. They're cop killers. And the Democratic Party is like this with Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And Soros supports Black Lives Matter. He supports Biden. He supports Harris. And he supports the DAs who let people out of jail. He's got about 20 of them all over the country. Yeah. This guy wants to destroy America so we become socialist. Right. This is all part of a socialist theory to bring down this country. The taking down of statues, that's what Lenin did. That's what Mao did.
Yeah.
The rewriting of history, that's exactly what Mao did. China doesn't have a history anymore.
Could this be done, like if you became mayor today, are there too many laws or restrictions or regulations against you actually implementing the broken window policy? Or could somebody actually do it
stop
now?
me. I'm a lawyer. I interpret it. How did I get rid of the squeegee guys? So I had the squeegee guys, and my cop said, we can't do anything because they're not breaking any law. I said, yes, they are. They're jaywalking.
Yeah, there you go.
We're going to give them a ticket for jaywalking. We're going to find out who they are. And when we find out who they are, I'm going to make a bet with you. Half of them are wanted. Well, half of them were wanted. So they went to jail. The other half just got tired of getting tickets, and they went to New Jersey. I mean, what it requires is something that De Blasio lacks, a brain. It requires a brain applied to a problem. When we wanted to stop it on Wall Street, we got horses and the anti-crime unit that idiot did away with. And the horse cops could see the purse snatcher in the crowd. Mm-hmm. He would call the anti-crime cop and say, 2 over, there's a tall guy, watch, he's going for the woman's purse. Boom, that guy was gone after 2, not after 20.
Policies and
now,
systems
this moron would never think of doing something like that.
Right.
First of all, he likes criminals. You don't set all those guys free during COVID if you don't love criminals. Those people should have been kept for health reasons. They should have been kept at a segregated part of Rikers Island.
Yeah,
this is no different.
They were let out.
He did to New York what the Chinese did to us. Yeah. He let people who were exposed to COVID just give it to everybody else in the city. Yeah. And because he's a Democrat, nobody raises it. The guy has been the worst mayor in the history of the city. There are many think he may be the worst mayor in the history of America.
All right. I wish we had more time. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks again, especially after 9/11. You're always my mayor. Yeah. So thank you so much.
The man's a disaster. He ruined an awful lot of hard work and a lot of blood and tears.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.